Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pull Focus, the cinema-based entertainment podcast where a couple of freelancers get together to talk shop. My name is Mike, and as always, I am joined by my brother in crime, a wolf in sheep's clothing, a man who's always a liking what he sees, somebody whose talent is so huge it makes us howl up the moon. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Robert Andrus.
Yes. Thank you.
Oh, man.
Thank you for shutting up so quickly too. I mean, my standing ovation.
Well, I got them trained pretty well. Like they stand up. You can't keep these people down, Andrus. When it comes to you can't keep them down. But immediately afterwards, they have been trained to sit back down and allow us to do our jobs, allow us to do the most important thing, which is hang out and talk about movies. And man, do we have a good one. But we're going to hold off on that for a moment. Andrus, how are you doing, man? It's been a minute.
I am doing very, very okay.
Good.
Things have been consistently still busy
It's amazing.
in our incredible Utah Salt Lake City market.
Yeah.
There's new projects coming in. It's I think we're probably on the end of our commercial run.
Okay.
Because we've been doing so many commercials. But me saying that we're done doing them means in bulk.
Yeah.
I think we're still going to do a few here and there, but there's a couple movies coming our direction from what the powers that be are trickling down as far as information.
Is that usually how it works? Do you guys usually have? I know there's a season here in Utah, like there's a season everywhere else.
Yeah.
But is it generally like you get a block of commercials that you have to find casting for and have to take care of production for, or is it just going to be like with features, you do one by one? It's so
different. It's so different day to day, week to week, month to month, because at the beginning of our whole pandemic, we shut down for sure because we're like we don't want to exacerbate anything. And then when our state decided to open the doors, as far as, let's get businesses back and going, we've basically been going nonstop since.
Yeah.
So a lot of those have been commercial because they're smaller crews, they're smaller productions on that sense. But High School Musical,
coming on back.
Series is back. They've been filming, so they are incredibly cautious with the whole testing and making sure that everybody is as safe and healthy as possible.
Nice.
They've really taken it to heart as far as how their production is going and maintaining people's safety. But I don't know that every production is going to maintain that level of safety, but certainly every production that I've participated in so far has really been conscious of it.
That's refreshing. I do like the idea that Salt Lake has a chance now to shine. Granted, it's because of the worst circumstances, but in times like these, it's important to hang on to whatever positive thing you can. And if this is a chance, like Sue was talking about on our last episode, you guys can check that out at YouTube. I'll put the link in the description. The amazing Sue Rowe was talking about how she was surprised as well about how the production was just rolling. And it's always really refreshing to have a chance to show off, what she was talking about. Honestly, the competent people, the good crews, the good writing, and everything that is right here in the Salt Lake area. It's one of these situations where, of course, I wish everything would be back to normal, where I wish you and I could be recording in the Pull Focus studio, my kitchen, and be able to see each other and everything. But the fact that even despite these challenges, people are still able to prove that even during the toughest times, we can be Salt Lake strong, Salt Lake capable, and do what's necessary in order to get the job done in a safe environment. That always talking to you about that and having Sue reinforce that is always a good thing. It makes me happy. But yeah, I'm glad you're doing okay. That's good.
I would say we're just pushing forward and staying strong. There's a lot of stuff that's been going on, so it's nice.
Yeah. Well, I think that in that independent spirit, it is an excellent segue into the feature that we're going to talk about today. We're going to
talk about it.
Let's do it. We're going to get a little spooky. Ooh. Because it is. I cut off that echo a little bit too early. Anyway, as of the date recording, it is about the week before Halloween, and we thought we would give all of y'all a treat here, talking about a very competent, independent horror comedy that is appropriate for the season at large. This is going to be about a lovely little film that actually is quite huge and terrifying, especially when it comes to the subject matter. Of course, I'm speaking about The Wolf of Snow Hollow.
I'm John, I'm an alcoholic. I've been in the program now for 6 years, sober for 3.
This is scary. It's new. I never saw a body like that.
There's gonna be a lot of late nights and overtime because of the brutal murder that happened in town, and I didn't want to set up expectations that I can't keep.
Our expectations of you are very low.
Spans of the bites were gigantic, same as the distance of the paw prints.
It's a wolf. Or maybe it's a werewolf.
No, let me just make this perfectly clear. There is no such thing as werewolves. Our killer is a guy, and I'm gonna find him, and I'm gonna kill... and we're gonna bring him to justice.
We have every reason to believe that this monster will show up again tonight. I won't ask you to pray with me, because of the goddamn lawyers.
Where were you? Where were you? John! None of you talk to me at once, okay? They're saying it's a wolf. No, it's a man. When do I get to be right about something? Do your job! Do your job! I am begging you!
You want to be sheriff? How about we start acting like one?
All right, so guys, once more, just in case you didn't notice from the trailer that we just played there, this horrifying gothic monster movie that has a lovely, I think, therapeutic, kind of quirky twist to it with The Wolf of Snow Hollow. This is a lovely independent film made and written and directed and starring one very talented and capable gentleman that goes by the name Jim Cummings. Jim Cummings is a independent artist around these parts, actually. In fact, the film was The Wolf of Snow Hollow was shot in majority here in Utah. There are, plenty of ways in which through the vignettes you can see the mountains popping up here on the Wasatch. There's, just a general veneer of cold Midwestern people doing what they can to get by in the small town. And all of a sudden, there's a crisis afoot. Let's go ahead and read from the IMDb summary here. Terror grips a small mountain town as bodies are discovered after each full moon. Losing sleep, raising a teenage daughter, and caring for his ailing father, Officer Marshall, see what they did there? Officer Marshall, struggles to remind himself there's no such thing as werewolves. This film is very recent, finally produced and let out, and still running in some theaters with a limited release on 2020. It came out on October 9th this year, which is roughly 2 weeks from the date of this recording. And on the same day that it became available in theaters, not just because of following a trend that was, birthed from us dealing with movie productions in the time of COVID, but something that I'm actually a big fan of. It was released on digital download with, Amazon, Amazon, Apple, that kind of stuff on the same day. So we were able to see this while it's still fresh. And I'm going to tell you guys this right now. If you happen to be a fan of horror, if you happen to be a fan of comedy, we're going to talk about that in a second. If you happen to be a fan of independent film, especially when it comes to somebody who has experience with Jim Cummings, who was able to get some fame from a short that was later turned into the movie that he has the most acclaim for, the 2018 production Thunder Road, you guys are going to enjoy this one. I'm saying that right now. But of course, this is a two-man show, and I'm going to bring in, the master of fang and claw himself, Andrus. Before we get into this, let's jump back in and just really, I want to ask you the first question that's probably going to be weighed out in regards to this entire conversation. I thought that this movie was really good, but it was really, really campy, but in a nice, quirky way. But we talked about this a little bit before we started recording and everything. How should we digest this film? How should we think of it? Is it a comedy or is it a horror movie? Is it a monster movie or is it a murder mystery? I mean, how did this balance out when you first saw this film coming up here?
No, literally, it's everything. I mean, I have some preconceived notions from a story that I'll tell you in a little bit, but
yes, please.
But that's such an interesting thing that you said the word campy.
Yeah, and I say it with love.
No, and I understand the term, but for me, it didn't quite go campy enough for it to be a comedy.
Okay.
It stayed in the horror genre for sure for me, even though there were some funny parts. There were some genuinely funny parts. But as we were talking about this off air, I really do think of it more of a tragedy and a horror movie.
A tragedy. Okay.
Yeah. There's just look at the main character. Look at the shit that he's going through in a pre-pandemic COVID time.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. John.
This was obviously done before then.
Right.
So we don't have to deal with that. But I mean, he's still struggling in every single aspect of his life. Right. I
think that I kind of fall onto my my own laurels in regards to that, because the way in which I deal personally with like stress and I'll coin that phrase with tragedy myself is with anger. And when I see Jim Cummings, who played John Marshall, deal with it in the same way, with these rigorous outbursts that he has, I found it to be really, really funny, honestly.
I'm wondering if that's part of who he is, so he writes it into every one of his scripts.
Sure. No, he followed he followed the same route when he did like Thunder Road too, which is a movie about a cop. That this is pretty much like Thunder Road, but with werewolves, which I'm all about. I love that idea. But
why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not? It's a great idea, especially when you have decent writing that comes into play, and you have a strong cast that has the capability to bounce things back and forth. This is a really great example of character acting, but it definitely takes a moment to allow Jim Cummings to stretch out and really just do like this. He pulls like an Ace Ventura. He pulls he uses his anger to kind of cloud, to your point, the real terrible things that are happening to this character. I thought that maybe the development could have been a little more detailed, and we'll get into that a little bit, so that it would help the audience kind of empathize with him. Because when I was, instead of me feeling for him throughout the movie, I was laughing at what the character was doing. He's yelling at his deputies. He's yelling at his ex-wife. He's yelling at his daughter, and it's all so brilliant and funny, because I see myself wanting to. I've been in situations where I want to tell people off the same way that John Marshall is telling off these people that he's working with. But of course, you have to keep in mind things that coming later in the film.
Spoiler alerts.
Right.
Spoiler alert!
And it's introduced early. Marshall is a recovering alcoholic, and he's also dealing with an ailing father, who we are going to speak a lot about with this episode, who's played by the legendary and lovely and very capable Robert Forster. Rest in peace, rest in power, rest in love. Where you find out that Forster's character, Sheriff Hadley, is actually dealing with a crippling heart condition, and that throughout the movie you see him get steadily worse when it comes to his health. And what's really, really interesting to me, that made me do a double take from time to time, is how Jim Cummings handles the obvious comedic anger with the obvious emotional sadness that deals with losing your father, losing a parent, and succumbing to this disease, this alcoholism that ends up, turning him into a monster that may be just as bad as the werewolf that they end up fighting towards the end of the movie. Of course, Forster and Cummings are not the only actors in this movie. Otherwise, it would be a lot less entertaining. Obviously, a lot less entertaining? Nice, Mike. Anyway, the cast is really great. We have the ridiculously talented Ricky Lindholm playing Officer Julia Robson, who actually ends up being the hero in the movie, I think, which we can talk about later. The prevailing force of good that ends up destroying the monster in the end. New to cinema, Chloe East, who plays Jenna Marshall, who's John Marshall's daughter. Great scenes with her, especially after she almost gets killed by the werewolf monster and ends up, instead of running in fear or breaking her ankle or having a shower scene like all starlets have to do in these horror movies. No, she's actually going to be independent, and she's going to call her father out for the bullshit that he's pulling, even though there's a monster running amok, killing people, not 50 meters away from him. It's a great scene. We have Marshall Allman. We have Daniel Fenton Anderson playing the coroner. We have Jimmy Tatro, who didn't have a lot of screen time on there, but played PG Fallfree. Jimmy Tatro, of course, having a pretty established movie career with 22 Jump Street, American Vandal, Two Grown-Ups, that kind of thing. He's been working for a while, and he is a very talented actor. He's definitely kind of, how can I put this? You see him playing a lot of frat bros, but here he was actually able to stretch out a little bit and have a couple emotional scenes in regards to what he was doing. And the supporting cast is great too. And as you guys are going to come to learn, we almost had one Robert Andrus in the cast itself. Robert, this is something that the casting company
I don't know you can say almost.
You didn't get the call back?
I don't know how.
What are you talking about?
No, I did. I just don't know how close that was. I'm just
like right away. No, I did. Yeah, of course you did.
No, I mean, I was a front runner for
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about that. Like we get into into the baseball of this a little bit. This film was shot here locally in Utah. They did have some other locations that were out of state, but most of the time, most of these scenes and the production was taken care of here in the greater Salt Lake area in northern Utah. One of the things that I did love about this movie, I think it was probably like a little nod to the locations that was going on. Everybody was vaping in this movie. Everybody.
They were, literally.
Yeah, you would have an aside where somebody would just pull their vape away and talk to the camera or something like that. Marshall vaped for a second when he was going through his relapse with alcoholism and everything. The coroner was vaping while he was looking at bodies. And just so that you guys who aren't local, who listen to this podcast know, everybody vapes in Utah. It's a very, very weird thing, even in the time of COVID. But let's talk a little bit about how you associated yourself with this film a little bit, Andrus, because we do know that I consider it a privilege to be, talking with somebody who can give me a deeper idea as to, the trials and tribulations when it comes to casting, when it comes to auditioning here in this town. Explain to me exactly what your affiliation was when it came to this production, and maybe some of the different challenges that came up when you saw this was coming down the pipe way back when it was going through production.
So this one for me was strictly as an actor. I just looked it up, and my callback was for January 18th in 2019.
Wicked. Okay.
So as far as timeline goes, I mean, they got the movie done in a year and a half, which is pretty awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
Congratulations to them. And to the entire cast, because a lot of them are either friends of mine, students of mine, colleagues of mine in some fashion. So it's really, really cool.
That's one reason why I wanted to talk about this movie too, because we have mentioned a lot about how the scene here has proof of having success, has proof of having commercial success. And I always love having the capability of being able to prove that with examples, and this movie is a really good one. It was filming took place in Kamas, Utah, around March, and it looks like this was going through the usual rigmaroles that a film would go through when it comes to a feature of this length. Like you mentioned, getting it done in a year. Unfortunately, I was unable to find any sources that lead me to believe that they had to rush or change scheduling because of COVID. It looks like they were able to get this in the can prior to the pandemic hitting.
This was certainly before that. I mean, they went right into filming correct following the callback.
So explain to me that dynamic, though. So like 2019, around that time, you're getting the call. What's happening next when it comes to that?
Well, so Jim Cummings was in town, obviously to do the filming. He did a presentation for Thunder Road that I wasn't able to go see, but a friend of mine did.
Yeah.
And then we had a conversation about the auditions. If we get the opportunity to do an audition, how are we going to do it? Because is Thunder Road a comedy, or is it a drama, or is it somewhere in between?
Right.
And her perspective was, it's a comedy. I'm like, look at the timing, look at the beats. And I'm giving her a Seinfeld voice. It's a comedy. But once I read the sides, I don't even remember if I read the full script or not, or if it was all of the sides that we were provided. But it gave me enough context to know, no, this is a horror movie, and it has comedy elements in a horror movie. There was this real big perspective of, it's a comedy, no, it's a horror, no, it's a comedy.
I think that as an actor, of course, like when you're getting the idea of somebody's previous work, and again, we mentioned this like just minutes before, this is like Thunder Road with werewolves. But you know what? I'm all about it because Jim Cummings and his production company are really good at being able to make movies that are like this. They have similarities in it. He played a cop in the previous movie. He's playing a cop now. He has to deal with these triggers for a nervous breakdown that he has to deal with. He deals with it now. But it isn't just a carbon copy because obviously we have a different dynamic of having this murder mystery horror theme that's coming about it, which makes it honestly pretty original. Movies like this have been done before, but I definitely enjoyed this one. It's definitely in my top 5 when it comes to like this whole genre, and it is a genre. I mean, we're not talking about something as ridiculous and also funny as like the Wayans brothers doing like Scary Movie or anything like that. This is kind of like a horror comedy that I think you can take seriously, and that whose entertainment value, unlike Scary Movie, is like valid, like sight gags and great jokes and that kind of stuff. This thing made me think a little bit and made me get interested into finding out who the murderer really was, and how Cummings' character was going to get through this gambit of challenges that his character set up for himself. He's self-destructive, and when you have to take that into consideration, I imagine that must be pretty challenging when you go into the audition. Was that something that affected things, or is it something that you took into consideration? Can you remember, or was it like smooth sailing? I mean, I'm not an actor. I don't know how it works.
The interesting thing about this one was I auditioned for Robert Forster's character.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So, I mean, in the breakdown, it's somebody 50 to 70 or whatever the breakdown was at the time.
Yeah.
But for our viewers that don't know me, that's not me.
No.
I'm older than what I look, but I don't look that old. So,
that's absolutely, I can attest to that.
Yeah, you can attest to that. So, it was really interesting for me to play the scene where they just discovered the first body.
Yeah.
And then he's talking about how many emails he has. In this conversation.
It's worse than my birthday. There are so many quotable lines.
Yeah. It was so weird for me to play that role.
Yeah.
But I also know that there's such things out there as mock science, and I just had to make that performance as real as I could make that performance, make that audition as true of a character as I could do it. And that earned me a callback, and I went to the callback, and Jim was in the room reading opposite of me, and I read for
That's great.
an officer, and I also was prepared to read for a local kid, but he only had me read the officer.
Gotcha.
Because I don't think I looked what he needed me to look like for the other role. But it was really interesting because, like, in a time of pandemic, COVID, and stuff that we deal with now, this would not have flown because he literally got this close to my face.
Yeah. He was inches away from you. Yeah, just for the rehearsal. That's crazy.
So it was really just an interesting thing, and a lot of what he does is just spit out the lines and just go as quickly as possible, which I did, and then I left, and then I found out later on that everybody else was cast, so I knew that I could move on from it.
Gotcha.
But as far as answering your question, of course, all of that feeded into it.
Yeah.
Of course, all of that was there. I don't think ultimately that I fit what this movie was looking for. So I absolutely agree with the casting choices that they have in there.
Yeah.
Because the cast that they do have that I read for, I put me in those scenes and it doesn't work.
I think that's so.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's very sobering for you to say, and I think that you've always like hit me as somebody who has a really good balance of knowing their own value, and but also not taking it personally. I mean, I think that's a sign of like, a real. I mean, you have to have that attitude if you want to make any money in this industry. You have to make sure.
I will throw in a joke and say I don't know why I didn't get the show. Because my audition for that was very, very good.
That's awesome. I'm sure you did an amazing job.
Obviously, but no, it was a really, really interesting process for me from beginning to end, because I auditioned for a 50-year-old and I got called back in for a 20-year-old.
Right. That's pretty much, those are the odds too. Yeah,
one of the guys from the bar that's talking shit on one of their friends.
Yeah.
That whole scene with the girlfriend, and
it's when we're first introduced to Jimmy Tatro's character. PJ Palfrey is there with his fiance or would-be fiance, and they're having dinner, and some of the locals there are throwing down with some slurs and whatnot, and he makes it a point of saying, "Hey, don't say that," almost gets in a fight. And that's one of the first red herrings of the movie, because later his I believe it was Liz Cardenas. Let me double check. I believe so. I could get back. No,
it was her character name was Brianna, so it's Anne Hamilton.
Anne Hamilton, thank you very much. Yes, Annie Hamilton. She was then eaten by a werewolf after you see the two locals give some bad attitude. So this movie is filled with little red herrings like that, which all good horror movies have to have. And I think there's another thing that when it comes to the idea of misdirection that I wanted to bring up when it came to this whole movie. One moment, hold on. Okay, I will edit that out. Sorry, Andrus.
No worries.
Had to have a quick conversation with my mom, not to turn on the heat because my microphone can pick up the vents coming off the.
Funny is that.
Yeah, but it's okay. Anyway, as I was saying, here we go. When it comes to like misdirection and the flow of this film, I thought that one of the things that really did kind of turn me on about it was the way in which Cummings did deal with time. He does this really smart thing with every murder scene after the first, where you get these little, how can I put this? These little markers where the scene takes place in present day, where Marshall and his his deputies, who are not qualified to handle this kind of murder. Like early on, we see Skylar Bible's character talk about, hey, just let the feds deal with it, because they see these bodies that are like ripped apart and cut up and everything by this beast, this monster, quote unquote.
I've got parking tickets.
Yeah, exactly. I got drunk drivers to deal with. I'd rather be dealing with that. But
that was a really great line there.
It was great. Like the entire cast is very strong here. And one of the things that I did love about it, though, is that you have these quick juxtapositions of like these conversations that are going through. And then you also like a 1v1, like you have like this switch over to the scene when the murder was happening, and we see these great creature effects. There's no CGI in this movie. It's all going to be practical effects, and the competence when it comes to like the camera angles and the lighting, where you can't get like a great visual of the wolf until one of the final reveals. I think is very smart. And also just like that pacing, that misdirection, where not only do you get to see Cummings like have his nervous breakdown and lash out, which I think is hilarious, but you also get to see the reality of the situation, where you see these beasts use, their claws to rip apart these poor victims. And again, I'm a sucker for like that kind of stuff. I'm a sucker for like people foregoing the CGI blood spray. And even though I know it's not real, when we go up and we see not Amanda Brown, but the young lady who was the snowboarder.
Snowboarder. Let me find her name.
I think it's Hannah Elder. Actually, I could be wrong. Yeah, I believe it was Hannah Elder. But she plays a snowboarder victim in this, and like you see her hold up her arm, and of course her arm isn't there anymore. It's just a stump, and you see like the practical effects and everything come out. I love that stuff. But then again, that goes back to like our original statement that we're talking about. These are hokey, I say that with love, campy effects that old horror movies use in order to instill that vibe. But then again, seconds before those scenes are put up, we see a man having a literal nervous breakdown as he's lashing out, comedically or not, to his cohorts, and also like falling deeper and deeper into this disease of alcoholism that he's dealing with. So I think they did such a really wonderful job of being able to juggle. Hey, look, this movie is all of this. I'm holding up my hands to the camera that Andrus can see. It's all of this, and we're just going to smush it in your face over and over again so that we keep you off balance, so you don't know what we're going to do next. And I think they accomplished that very well. The pacing is so important, and it allows us to be able to see like this Sorkin-esque kind of dialogue bleed through it. That kind of glues things together. The scenes between Cummings and Forster are great. You can see pain in Marshall's face when he realizes that his dad is going to die. That he realizes that his dad is not going to be able to be this legendary sheriff anymore, and now he, on top of everything else, is going to be forced to take that responsibility on top of everything else, and he just breaks down. You see it and then immediately right to a scene where the wolf is cutting people apart. You see it when he's going side by side with Lindholm, and she's the younger officer, who is telling him, the older, more experienced officer, what the job really is, what you have to do, and then immediately you see like a beer bottle splash across the car that's been thrown at them, because nobody likes the cops in this town because they can't do their jobs. And immediately right after that, Cummings is coming out like with a Dick Van Dyke kind of exit from the car. He can't get his gun out of the holster, and you see like this weird body language. I can understand having an argument about this movie and arguing as to whether or not it's a horror movie or a comedy, because I don't think this movie knows. I think this movie. Let me rephrase that.
It's confused.
It is confused, just like the main character. The main character is a fish out of water. He has no idea what's going on, and he's trying to rein in that control. I imagine that must have been very challenging from a production standpoint. I mean, when you're trying to use like these quick shots and this quick dialogue to try and reinforce that this movie is like a top, it's just twisting over and over and over again.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, just circumstance being what it is, like I understand the argument of comedy because it's ridiculous all the way through.
Yeah.
And even listening to you describe it, it sounds funny.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
There's certainly some funny things about it. But I mean, when it just gets down to it, I mean, for me, the suspense that they build, the way that they talk about I mean, they even make fun of the fact that there's a werewolf. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
In the conference room, when they're talking about the first victim, they're like, "Well, no, it's a wolf. Well, maybe it's a werewolf." Blah blah blah. You know?
Right.
But I mean, even from the very beginning, Jim Cummings says it's not a werewolf; it's a dude.
Yeah,
Come on,
exactly.
everybody, this is a dude. And I mean, from there on, it's like, I mean, he's Dewey from Scream. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me that this is a true comedy, just like it's not a true horror film.
Why don't you talk to me a bit about, like, because you mentioned this before too, before we got on air, where there are some of these somber parts to it as well. I've been able to provide some information in regards to how I can reinforce how this might be a horror film. I mean, obviously I'm talking about, like, the campy angles, the practical effects, the monster stuff popping up.
Yeah.
What about this movie makes it seem more like a drama or a tragedy for you?
He's a reluctant hero. He's an alcoholic. The topics and themes that they have in here are so relatable to people with their own demons and issues and everything else. He's dealing with a strange relationship with his daughter and his father. And
he cares about her both. He cares about
and
them
his
both.
ex-wife. And I mean, just every single aspect of this person's life is in the the shitter.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he has zero control over any of it. So this is one thing that he can try to control.
Right.
But I mean, for me, it's just from beginning to end, it's just a tragedy. It shows me that this person is not the hero or the anti-hero. He's the victim. And
that's refreshing.
Pathetic for me.
So he's not trying to, be a white knight or anything. He's just trying to survive.
I don't think he's capable of being.
Okay. I like that dynamic. I like that a lot.
Because I mean, he's the one that does push forward the idea of, no, we need to find and we need to stop and we need to do.
Yeah.
But who actually does that? And you called it from the beginning. And that's Lindholm's character.
Yeah, Julia Robson, for sure. In fact, she's the one that ends up. We find out later in the film that the whole idea of this being a werewolf is, thrown into thrown into the garbage, because we find out that the actual murderer.
Spoiler alerts.
Is Paul Carnery, who's played by the lovely and very talented Will Madden, who is very good at being able to bring up the creepy factor in regards to this.
He did a good job with that.
He did a great job.
I haven't seen him in anything that I'm aware of, but yeah.
Will Madden has a bit of a history when it comes to this kind of stuff. He's done. He was on Thunder Road as well, and that's really great when you see the Cummings bringing in find people. That's one of the tricks, though, right? Find people that you enjoy working with that can handle the challenge, and just keep working with them.
I believe is also Jim Cummings as well.
Yeah, we go through the story set of this, and Madden's character Paul is introduced early on in the film. He owns the Airbnb where the first two victims are vacationing. And what's really cool about these little jumps that pop up with him in it, he's constantly talking about, oh, my wife is going to kill me, or I have to call my wife, and all this other stuff about the Airbnb. There are scenes where he's talking to the cops and he's aggressive. There are scenes where he's brought in as a witness and they try to get testimony from him. But on the very last bit of the film, where Cummings' character is going around returning evidence to these the small townspeople, some of them take it in stride. Some of them literally spit in the sheriff's face, because the act of giving back, the last thing that your loved one held or something is depressing enough to the characters that they end up acting violently against him. He brings back some evidence to Madden's character. And we find out through a certain amount of flashbacks, which is something I want to talk about, that Madden's character Connery, being a taxidermist, was actually a serial killer wearing the body of a wolf, a literal wolf suit that he had fashioned with knives for claws, and made him look like the real thing. but in reality was just a terrible, terrible monster of a man going about killing innocent women because he was angry at his wife. That never appears in the film. In fact, that's where he gets tripped up on. Cummings comes to his house and says, "Well, I guess your wife is out of town," to which Madden's character replies, "Oh, I'm not married." Where previously in the movie, we see this well-established situation where he's, married and probably very frightened of his wife. But that's one thing, too, that kind of confused me about this film. And I can appreciate the ridiculous competency when it comes to these great scenes that pop up and this dialogue that pops up and the way that Cummings goes through and lashes out at people and the way that these people react. It seems so organic, so natural, and it was really lovely. But one of the shortcomings of this film, I think, is that they buried the lead so hard that it was really kind of tough to tie all the pieces together when they were actually revealed. I think that it was just, again, I always feel bad when I criticize things like this because I don't have movie credits as anything more than a boom operator and a sound guy. I don't know what it means to write a script and make sure that things are well balanced and put forth when it comes to dialogue and character development. So I would have liked, though, if finding out that Madden's character was the murderer was honestly a little more obvious. I watched this film twice. I wasn't able to pick up all of the differences between the red herrings and the real leads until after a second watching, which honestly might be a good thing. Have people come back, have them get back into the seats, have them order the movie or rent the movie again, and enjoy it for a second time. But I would really have liked to have been able to. I would have liked to have been able to see this come about and predict what was going to happen. More so than having to watch it more than once to figure out how all of the little objects were tied together. Which is why when Andrus comes out and he says that this is a tragedy, I disagree. I don't think this movie is a tragedy. I don't think this movie is a comedy, although it has elements of both. My vote is definitely that this is just an old-fashioned murder mystery that happens to have a werewolf and some really smart and sharp writing that allows us to laugh at the shortcomings of his characters, regardless of the immense amount of challenges that they're dealing with. Robert, what did you think about the flow in regards to this? I usually kind of lean on you when it comes to whether or not the things I'm saying about, the fluidity of the film, the connectivity is bad or good. I rely on you a bit to kind of tell me where I might be short or long in those kind of things. Did this movie move along accordingly for you, especially now that when you was it following the default tragedy kind of footsteps that you thought it would, or did it surprise you?
That's just me saying I don't know where to put it, and that's the first thing that comes to mind.
I gotcha.
I agree with you that it's a murder mystery. That's a really great way to label it.
Well, when I say that, I mean that technically speaking, right? We've watched a lot of movies.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
And it's one that needs to be solved, and it's solved by the end of it.
But it has the introduction of the different red herrings and the different characters and the different reveals in the proper acts of the film that you would do a mystery for. We've seen enough movies to know that, hey, drama usually follows this routine. Romance usually follows this routine. Comedy usually follows this routine, so on and so forth. I think that this follows a classic Sherlock Holmes kind of mystery kind of situation when it comes into play. But again, that's the thing. Did it flow okay for you, or was this disjointed? And did that mess up the way in which you could enjoy the film?
No, the pacing for me was fine.
That's the word I'm looking for.
There were a couple moments in there that was weird. There was one scene in particular where we were in daylight, and then we flashed back to the murder scene happening in progression of what. So that time jump was a little bit weird for me.
The thing I was commenting on before. Yeah.
We didn't do that throughout the entire show, so it just felt interesting.
That is true. That is true. The first murder happened in real time, and then everything after that, it was this juxtaposition between the murder scene and the murder actually happening. I thought it was smart, but I can understand how that can feel disjointed for sure.
Yeah, they definitely, in my opinion, took some liberties with the format of storytelling in this one. But
yeah,
I would say the dialogue scenes with Jim and his posse,
so good, so good.
I mean, what's the character's name? Shoot, what? Why is his name escaping me? Right?
We have goodness
I know.
gracious.
Like literally, my brain just stopped working, and I clicked off of this.
IMDb is failing us. What's going on?
Who is he?
So it's Jim Cummings. We have Skylar Bible, who's playing Officer Ray Gutierrez, who I think actually in the movie was named Chavez. I think that might be a mess up on IMDb.
Well, no, Demetrius Daniels played Chavez, which was really weird for me.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. I misspoke. Very good.
Demetrius is a local actor.
That's awesome. He did a great job.
And friend and colleague and everything else. He's been around for me.
That's great.
Yeah, I was trying to think of John Marshall. I don't know why I can't think of
I gotcha.
But whatever. The scenes with the deputies is, I think they're built for comedy. I think that the scene with his dad is built for drama or for I don't even know what. But
sure.
It's a reason for him to explode and be loud.
Absolutely.
And lose his mind.
But when he gets with his daughter, though.
He's with his daughter, dramatic.
That is, I can see the tragedy aspect in that, too.
Here's the thing, too. Like, I felt the estranged relationship, but I didn't feel any connection.
No, not at all. I think that's a point, though. I think in the scene in the diner where Marshall is talking with Chloe East's character, his daughter Jenna, and then his ex-wife is there.
Rachel Day, yeah.
And I think that was just a reason to show how crazy this character is. He's talking about like how he'd rather be in Abu Ghraib than in this town right now, and he's talking about like using the murder as a way for why he was late for a recital that his daughter, who happens to be going to I think Utah State or something.
Gymnastics scholarship or something.
Yeah, for gymnastics. And the line that's going about it is he says, I'm sorry, Becky, or whatever her name is. I forget the character's name at the moment. But I couldn't make it on account of the horrible, grisly murders that are taking place in the town right now. Hi, honey. How you doing? How's the... So on and so forth. Like these crazy asides that pop up that Cummings is so good at. Who, honestly... I hate to say this, he's a very handsome guy, but I definitely got like, Psycho remake vibes, like Bates Motel from him.
He would be a fantastic Norman Bates.
He'd be amazing Norman Bates.
Just because of the offness that he plays.
Exactly.
And he would also be a terrific vampire. He's got amazing teeth for vampire movies.
Yeah, for sure. Very, very prominent canines, which is why I thought he was the werewolf at first.
Right?
Which is an old reveal that comes to play, but...
Yeah, there's just so many different things about this movie.
It's wild. It's wild.
I felt the same way for Thunder Road too. So I think it's just his version of filmmaking. I think it would have been a ball to be a part of.
It would have been great.
Maybe even been able to get a little bit more into the mindset of what he was trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think that he made a good, solid movie that has a beginning, middle, and end, and it told the story, and it's a whodunit, and we find out in the end who done it.
Yeah.
And I think that it gives a really strong female character something to do. I think that it gives everybody that's lost a parent some connection to what he's going through,
and the pain. That comes into play with that for sure.
I think it covers even the teenage sex in a car situation.
That's just old horror tropes, though, right? I mean, like that's.
But here's the thing. Here's the thing that I was disappointed about. The hot tub scene didn't go nearly as far as I thought that they were going to take it. And that's where the campiness comes in.
Right.
Not that I'm saying that it needed it, because it didn't.
Right.
It was a lovely direction of where it went. And then when you find out what actually happened to her, it makes that would have been too much anyway. But I was honestly a little bit disappointed that they didn't take the tropes a little bit further.
Like the shot of like, you know, the monster that's lurking in the woods is looking at them in the hot tub, and like they start making out or something, and all of a sudden you see the guy gets stabbed first, and then the young lady gets no. And this one, the guy actually survives. It's a bit weird.
I mean, we never got somebody being chased up a flight of stairs.
Exactly.
You know, stuff like that.
The only shot we're seeing was when some guy was manscaping his lower quadrant, getting ready for
really funny for the gratuitous shower scene.
Yeah. I love that too. Yeah,
they did end up doing a gratuitous shower.
They did a shower scene, but it's just all it is Jimmy Tatro like shaving his undercarriage because he and the wife are about to have a lovely time, and apparently that's something that they need in order to get things going. That is comic gold, and honestly something that I think a lot of our listeners could probably relate to, if I may say so myself. But I think we're kind of like on an agreement where we are both very happily confused by this film, and I do enjoy it when I'm knocked off balance by competent writing and really just really great independent filmmaking like this. And like this film does scream that independent vibe. Not only, of course, it was shot in our backyard, but I mean, this the budget for this was under $2 million, which when you come to like, you know, production costs, that is a spit in the bucket when it comes to a lot of films that are coming about. It's actually a bit more on the cheap side. And one thing that I really did love that I could see that was part of the flavor of this were the asides, where Cummings' character is about to have a fight with characters in AA, but you never see them. You just see him and maybe one other actor in the shot react to the anger that this phantom character is showing off, and then the actors get to react. Much the same way as which my neighbors react when they come home and their dogs are barking. It's like these little tricks that I love to see in film. Where and the werewolf part of this was a big part of that too. You never ever see the werewolf full on with like a bright light or anything like that when it comes to the reveal. The reveal is always in the cloak of darkness or movement or a blurry shot or something like that. And that it lends itself to the story because you understand that it isn't a real werewolf. It's a guy in a wolf suit, but it leaves you just enough to wonder. And it's just a smart way of using the camera and using the assets that you have to make a good movie. That's one reason as to why I think we both love independent film so very much. It weighs heavily, not on the effects, but on the competency of the writers and the actors and the production staff to make magic happen. And that's always refreshing to me when I see stuff like that happen accordingly. When it comes to, though, the end of this episode, we're going to talk about the things we usually talk about, and that's when it comes to our specialities. And we have been talking about it, Andrus, but if there is one thing that an aspiring actor or casting director or someone in those lines could take from watching this film, masterclass level, things to, remember, things to replicate, what would those things be when looking at The Wolf of Snow Hollow?
Well, for me, it's just know what story you're telling. I mean, right. That's acting 101, honestly. But that's one of the most challenging things for me as an actor going into auditioning.
Know what story you're telling.
Knowing which version of the story I'm telling. Is this a comedy? Is this a horror? Is this somewhere in between? And ultimately, I just decided on, since I was in the mindset of the sheriff, well, I've got a victim.
Right.
And I've got to talk to the press, and I've got to talk to my team and all of that. So I couldn't really go with the horror genre. I just went with an honest person doing an honest job.
Nice.
So that would be my advice to anybody. That changes depending on if you know that there's a werewolf out there, if you know that you're on the moon, if you know that you're on the full moon,
yeah.
whatever the situation and dynamics are that you're dealing with. You just have to make it real.
Yeah.
So
I can appreciate that.
And I'm really glad that I got to see Robert Forster in a role that I really liked seeing Robert Forster.
Absolutely.
Because there were several movies that he did when I first started paying attention to who he was as an actor, and I was irritated by him for just being the dude saying the lines, and just like, well, he didn't put anything into it. Now that's something I really appreciate.
Yeah, it's so lovely to be able to see, even though he was late in life and late in his career, he still had what it took to inspire people and to impress people. That's an actor. That's somebody who can use whatever time and talent they have left to improve a production, make people think. That's
and I get to say that I worked on 2 movies that Robert Forster worked on. I think that's really, really cool.
That's very cool.
This would have been a third, which would have been pretty cool.
Tied at the hip. That's awesome. I'm really glad you could have that experience, and I really do appreciate you giving me a look into the guts of being in that position. That's always refreshing to me. I'm glad we can have these conversations, and I'm glad that the 9 some odd people who listen to the show can benefit from them. So that's excellent. When it comes to the stuff that I was really impressed by when it comes to the sound design and everything like that, this is usually a crutch that I sit on a lot, and my opinion can't really be swayed from it too much, because I know what it's like to fill in elements that are realistic to the film that you're making. We've said it before, I've said it before, and it definitely rings true here, where when you're dealing with a movie that takes place in the real world, it's almost a sigh of relief, because you are forced to, I don't want to say be less creative, but you're supposed to make great things happen with less tools. Yeah. And we've mentioned before how doing sci-fi, doing fantasy, doing psychodramas and stuff like that. The amount of paint and color that you can use audibly is so big. Sometimes one of the problems is knowing which shade to choose. Here, we don't have that problem, except, and this is definitely something that kind of is like a common theme throughout this entire conversation, Andrus, except when we get to the wolf. Except when we get to the monster. Right. This chimera of a movie that is handling multiple genres and multiple attitudes and multiple everything that goes through and through in the production, in the writing, in the acting, and absolutely in the sound. On one hand, you have this regular podunk town whose sounds and production is going to come through as being relatively gray. It's going to be normal. It's going to be something that people aren't going to expect. But this outlier of having a monster in your movie is this yin and yang kind of situation that I would have jumped at the chance to do. Because the hard part really is trying to balance the fantastical with the simple. You have to not only make all the cars and all of the roads and all of the guns and all of the rooms and everything sound normal, you also get the extra challenge, the extra gift of being able to do whatever you want with a monster from a fantasy genre. And I happen to have a soft spot in my heart for werewolves, and the grunts and the audio, and even the little bit of echo and different processing they did on the killer's voice when you knew he was human, but he was still roaring at Marshall.
I was going to if that was one of the ones that you were commenting.
Yeah, totally. As a way to try and intimidate him. You could tell it was processed, but they did it in a way that was subtle, that was great. And throughout the movie, where you see these little blinks of the wolf, and the full reveal where you have the moon in the background, and he's hunkering over the snowboarder, and he's about to eviscerate her. When you finally see it, that reveal, and you hear the beast breathing with its lungs and breathe out with a growl. To have that kind of freedom mixed in with stuff that has to be realistic is very challenging, but I've been in that situation. It is really, really fun, and when you can pull it off, it's an opportunity to shine, and it's really cool to have seen that done very competently by the sound team here with Snow Hollow, specifically with Jared Janes, Rob Marshall, Chris Pinskin, A. Josh Reinhardt, Cody Scully, and the supervising sound editor, Gerard Watley. So kudos to you guys. You're able to find balance in a movie that not only dealt with real life, but also dealt with the fantastical as well. But anyway, guys, we do really appreciate you taking some time. Sorry if we scared you, but we want to do a spooky episode this time. We want to talk about a scary horror tragedy.
I think this was just really funny.
It was.
I just think that this was a complete comedy.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
That's comedic. But anyway, guys, what we want to do, all jokes aside, is let you know how much we appreciate you taking time to listen to us yammer on about this wonderful movie. Grazie. Thank you very much for giving us some time out of your day. If you think that if you agree with us about what this movie actually was, great. If not, well, remember, we may be wrong, but it's your job to tell us. Please follow us and subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on SoundCloud. Go ahead and give us an email if you feel like it. pullfocuspod@gmail.com. And keep us in line. We'll do what we can to try and make sure that we provide you good opinions, good talks, and introduce you to some films that maybe you haven't seen. This one you should definitely check out. Just do it like I did when you rent it and you watch in the safety at home, or do it like Andrus did and be safe. Gear up and be the only guy in the theater eating his peanut M&Ms. And if I were in that situation, I'd be having a panic attack. So, hands off to you, Andrus. You are a braver man than I.
I did wear my entire hazmat suit.
Damn straight you did, because you're a competent, capable individual, sir. But on that note, we do really appreciate you guys. Please stay safe. This is a time of COVID, and holidays are right around the corner. You don't want to, suffer through them. You want to celebrate them. So be careful. Wear your mask. Do what you have to do. And as always, if you are on the front lines, if you are a caretaker, if you're somebody who's delivering food, if you're out there keeping the peace, if you're doing everything you can to make sure that people like me can be safe and pull off these stupid podcasts with a good friend, I applaud you. We appreciate you. God bless you. And in the meantime, just keep doing you, and everybody have a happy Halloween. Bye.